週は都市を巡る血脈のようにこの世界に張り巡らされていた。
So let's sit down and talk about this whole new game that's gonna obviously include a lot of lore. This new mobile game for Kingdom Hearts called The Missing Link. Now, my initial reaction is obviously I want to puke every time I see a game that involves me playing on my phone. I just don't like it. I'm not a big fan on playing on the phone. The experience is not really genuinely good for me. My hands are a bit big for my phone, and sometimes the fingers literally just cover up the whole damn screen, and I get very uncomfortable when I play games on my phone, unless it's a convenient way to play on the phone. This game particularly is a whole new experience compared to Union Cross. It's not just me tapping and sliding. It seems this game is more complex, it's more live action, which is great, but at the same time, I could already tell my finger, just looking at the gameplay, oh, my fingers are gonna cramp up and I'm gonna feel uncomfortable playing, and it's just not gonna be as a good of experience for me, despite how good the gameplay is compared to Yin Cross. I want to talk about this because this has always been such a big problem with the Kingdom Hearts series for the longest time, even before the mobile games. And what I mean by that is them dumping in as much lore as they possibly can in these freaking gacha games or these side games, right? So obviously, since Kingdom Hearts 1, or since the Kingdom Hearts series was established, our first ever side game was on the Game Boy Advance, which was Chain of Memories. Chain of Memories, although the concept of Chain of Memories was really good, and honestly it's the most underrated storytelling within the series, it's my personal favorite as well. I think it's ridiculous how Chain of Memories at that time in the early 2000s was on a different whole platform, which was a portable console, which was the Game Boy Advance. But at that time, obviously everybody had a Game Boy Advance, so I guess it was convenient to release it on there and also add additional lore to the Kingdom Hearts series. Obviously people who just jumped into Kingdom Hearts 2 didn't understand certain concepts or story plot points, you could say, that they didn't really perceive as much, because there's a lot of stuff that involved Chain of Memories within Kingdom Hearts 2. But that wasn't a big a whole big problem at that time, because the storytelling within the first 3 games was a bit grounded, you could say. But nowadays, and I'm not saying oh, Kingdom Hearts is convoluted, blah blah, no, it's just, I think as a longtime fan, to me Kingdom Hearts is just a very complex story at this point, because of how there's much lore in every single game, and that started to become a problem. As much as I personally like it, I could see it as a problem for others. I mean, even right now, it's actually a problem to me, because I'm not willing to play the mobile games, to be honest with you. For example, so after Kingdom Hearts 2, we obviously didn't see Kingdom Hearts 3 until 2019. They didn't really hop into Kingdom Hearts 3 immediately, and they kind of took their time with the side games, right? And it was also at the time when Nomura was busy and creating other games, such as Versus 13. It just wasn't Kingdom Hearts, you know? So obviously, with all these side games after Kingdom Hearts 2, or should I say quote-unquote side games, because they're not really side games, because they're very significant to the plot. But yeah, with these portable games, the problem about it wasn't that it was being on portable, it was more so that the games were literally multi-platform. So if you wanted to continue the Kingdom Hearts games after Kingdom Hearts 2, you would need a Nintendo DS just to play 358 over 2 days. And then after 358, you would literally need a whole PSP, because Kingdom Hearts was being developed for the PSP, for Birth by Sleep. And then after that, they go back to the DS with recoded and whether you had a 3DS or a regular DS. I think maybe it was for the 3DS. I completely forgot. But truly, I know that Dream Drop Distance was the first Kingdom Hearts game to be specifically made for a certain console, which was the 3DS. It uses a lot of the 3DS features for that game, and honestly, I thought it was a cool concept to have, but obviously it's not my favorite in the series. But as someone who's, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, as someone is trying to get into the Kingdom Hearts series, they would literally have to go far and wide on these platforms just to play the games, and I think it's just absolutely ridiculous at this point, because not everybody has, like, at that time, not everybody had every single video game console on their hands. Okay, like, literally these consoles are expensive, and I think the Kingdom Hearts series would have honestly maintained a healthy community if they kept their games in one console and they kept on continuing it on one certain console. Or, like, obviously, like, going to PS2, PS3, that makes a whole lot of sense, right? Like, but if they kept it on that one particular platform, and for its next gen platform, it's just convenient, right? People could argue literally there's a whole game that the collection, the whole collection, like the 1.5 and 2.5 games that they showcase, literally cover like all these games, all these portable games that you mentioned. Because if you have the collection edition, which was the 1.5 and 2.5 game, it offers 358 over 2 days, Birth by Sleep Recoded, all the portable games that I've mentioned. But some aren't playable. They only give cutscenes. For example, 358 on the console, right? If you have the 1.5 and 2.5 collection, they don't. It is not playable at all on console, and it's literally just a whole theater mode, basically, for you to watch every single cutscene involving 358 over 2 days, which is obviously very convenient for the player if they want to know more of the lore. But I think obviously a lot of players want to actually play the game themselves, because also I think the whole experience when playing 358 over 2 days, it's actually really important, because there's a lot of dialogue happening in 358 over 2 days, and for them to really just skip out on all the dialogue stuff and just show all the story cutscenes kind of just doesn't do the game justice, because 358 over 2 days is a really great game in terms of, like, its story. And like I said, for the most part, majority of the portable games that are offered on a 1.5 and 2.5 collection, all you gotta do is just watch the cutscenes, which is very unfortunate. So you can't play Recoded, but you are able to actually play Birth by Sleep, and I think Birth by Sleep is actually a really good game, and I think it is very, very important to the plot. Well, in terms of, like, it being a good game, I thought it was a good portable game. I don't think it's a really good traditional Kingdom Hearts game, because a traditional Kingdom Hearts game has honestly the best combat system, and Birth by Sleep is incredibly different. And also, yes, Dream Drop Distance, you're able to play it on the 2.8 collection, but again, these games aren't the greatest to play, but at least they offer the 2. But I feel like 358 is sort of just it's like the it has like the undeserved treatment it has for that game, and the fact that we can't even play it on consoles is absolutely just crazy. And especially I get it that, like, yeah, it's gonna take a lot of time for it to be developed for console to make it run properly and such, but man, it just truly sucks that we can't actually play a playable version on console for 358. And again, this is a big problem within the Kingdom Hearts series still. Now, we don't really have to worry about these other quote-unquote side games to be on other multi-platform consoles. Now we have to worry is that they're becoming gacha games on your iPhone or Android. And I tried to play Yin Cross back in the day, but I just couldn't, because I just thought it was boring. I don't see the appeal for me in gacha games. And as much as the missing link It looks very appealing with its combat, and as much as I want to play it a lot, I won't really have it in me to really enjoy the experience, because it's just simply on my phone. If there were alternative ways to play the game, then I think I wouldn't really have a problem with it, honestly. Like, if they just released it on the Nintendo Switch and made it playable, made that mobile game playable on the Nintendo Switch, because the Nintendo Switch, the eShop offers legit mobile games on there. I think it would honestly be a win-win for not just Japan, because I know Japan, they love their gacha games. They love to create them, because a lot of people don't have the necessity or the time to really be playing games in their own home, because they're always busy and they're always on the go. So they play games. They literally play games on their phone. Like, literally the whole mobile game economy there is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Just to inform you guys about that, like, these mobile games, the portability of games, they're famous. It's like, they're really big. It's why Nintendo decided to make the Nintendo Switch, because they saw the shift and change in gaming in Japan. But as again, Kingdom Hearts is such a big franchise, and it's a whole, like, everyone around the world follows that series, right? And obviously it caters to many people, and I think the best that they can do is just honestly port the game to the Switch. Let me download it, and we'll have no problems. Obviously they gotta make it play good for the console, but I wouldn't have a problem with that. Like, Square Enix announced also about, like, the Final Fantasy VII Battle Royale, and then also the Ever Crisis, which apparently they're literally making a whole game of the OG FF7. They're even making a game based off Advent Children and other games that were just novels or movies. They're making full-on RPG games, with some gacha features for mobile. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous, because of how big that franchise itself, Final Fantasy VII, and them resorting to a bit of sort of a low quality gacha game on your phone, which you're not able to really experience well, because let's say, yeah, the game runs well on the phone, but the thing is, it's just not as convenient, because iPhone batteries or Androids, they waste a lot of batteries. Well, I know for iPhones particularly, I'm not really an Android user, but the fact that the iPhone battery just runs out so quickly when you play games, it's gonna suck, you know? Like, that's why I always thought in my head, if these games were literally on console, if they were playable on console, like especially on the Nintendo Switch, I wouldn't actually be complaining to this day, you know? And the fact that they're gonna dump so much lore into these things, into these games, and their storytelling within these mobile games is actually really good, because I did look into Union Cross, and they definitely had some very interesting plot points within their story. Like, and I'm missing out on tons of the storytelling, especially. I can't, like, if I didn't actually consider on watching certain stuff back then of Union Cross, like with the whole Strelitzia stuff, I wouldn't have no clue. I wouldn't even react it as well when seeing Strelitzia in Kingdom Hearts 4. So the fact that, like, this is still a problem after 20 years, this has to actually stop. Like, people need to actually acknowledge how wild this is getting, and not in a good way. It's nice to see that we don't have now side games on multiple platforms. It's great that actually most of the Kingdom Hearts games now are in every single platform except the Nintendo Switch. I'm not gonna count the cloud version, because that just doesn't run well. Now we're facing another issue, which is the lore dumps in these mobile games, and also the fact that the gameplay. I want to talk about more of the gameplay for The Missing Link. I think it's a very impressive improvement compared to the first one with Union Cross, because it still does the medal system combat, but instead of it using medals, it uses like this whole trophy or statue or figurine based system that you do. It still operates the same as the metal combat system in Union Cross, which is obviously inspired by Chain of Memories. But I really do think the combat has a lot of potential for it to be fun, and the fact that it is also multiplayer. Apparently it's up to 6 players, and I'm like, wow, a multiplayer Kingdom Hearts game where you could literally be raiding like MMOs and stuff. And that comes to the next topic of, this honestly should have been an MMO. Like, if they want to do all this lore dump in Union Cross and in Dark Road and then also in the Missing Link, they should have just made a Kingdom Hearts MMO. I know that sounds like, obviously I'm saying that way too casually. Like, I know it's very complicated to make an MMO, and I am aware Square Enix is very busy on establishing their own MMO, which is Final Fantasy XIV. Like, a lot of their budget goes to that, goes to that particular game. But I think it just honestly would have been so convenient to have, like, it didn't have to be like a big MMO to cater to everybody, right? Like, it just would have been nice to at least have some certain ways where you're able to make a comfortable, accessible game for everyone that they could enjoy. If you plan to make these gacha games, these Kingdom Hearts gacha games as a service, at the same time lore dumping on them. Like, I think what's wild to me is how they're putting important story plots in gacha games. I think that's what really turns me off about this whole thing so far, and this really needs to be discussed more, because like, I'm sick and tired of them creating great concepts of these plots in Kingdom Hearts just for them to be used in gacha games. Like, it's just, where's the integrity of the, like, where is it? It just really sucks. Like, I think that's the biggest criticism I have ever since I was a kid with the series. Because when I was a kid, I was like, why is Kingdom Hearts all over the damn place? And now the problem is I was like, why is Kingdom Hearts in every damn mobile game, and like, if I want to know the story? So I'm happy as a Kingdom Hearts fan, right? Like, don't get me wrong, but definitely I will call out the BS if there is some within the franchise. And it's not because of the games, or not because of how, like, it's not because of how the games suck, or it's not because, like, I'm not happy with the series. I'm literally happy with how Kingdom Hearts is going to be, especially with 4, right? I truly, absolutely think that Kingdom Hearts 4 deserves to be where it's at. And honestly, a lot of the Kingdom Hearts games deserve a lot of respect from its own company and developers. Again, I want to emphasize this enough, is that I'm aware that the developers and the team, the company itself, do their best to cater to us in some sort of way when it comes to their portable games. Because I feel like they do understand that, like, yes, their games are all over the place, and it sucks that, these games are multi-platform. It's why they decided to remake Chain of Memories. It's why they decided to actually port Birth by Sleep. And it's why they decided to do a full-on remaster of Dream Drop Distance. And I think that's absolutely amazing. It just sucks that for 358 and Recoded, it's not a thing, because maybe, like, in a developer standpoint, it's just not possible, or it's just going to take a lot of time for it to port it, because porting is not just something you copy and paste and put it on the game. It's not that easy. Like, there's still different stuff they have to do in the process to make it work and play as well compared to the other games. But yeah, like, I'm sorry if I seem negative. I'm not trying to be negative, but I just want to inform, like, everybody about how Square Enix is handling Kingdom Hearts. Especially, there are new people coming into the series, and as someone who is very passionate about the series, and I loved every game. I love Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3 to death, and also along with the other games like Birth by Sleep, Dream Drop Distance, you name them. Literally, I want people to be obviously into the series. I think it's great that people can enjoy the series, like a lot of people can enjoy the series, and with the mass appeal of Kingdom Hearts 4, and the attention that it's getting, obviously there's going to be people who want to get into the series. And that step, and that step of them just trying to understand and get some of the games. Now, obviously, yeah, again, people are not obligated to enjoy certain things or get into games like these type of games. But as someone like who wants people to obviously share the same feeling as I do, I think it's best that Square Enix handle these IPs, these titles right. And the whole gacha thing, man, and dumping in more lore in there, like, come on, man. Square. This is definitely still a problem within the series, and I don't know how to feel about it. There's plenty of ways to approach these type of things for its development, but their brightest idea they could think of is, yeah, let's make a freaking whole gacha game, and let's dump more lore into that. Oh, man.